The on-chain economy for collectibles, I think, is maybe 15 billion this year, or maybe it was that in 2025. It's expected to double in the next year or two. You know, we're putting a little bit higher value on things that made us happier as children, and like our nostalgic roots here. I don't see that slowing down anytime soon.
Today's Solana Sessions guest is Collector Crypt's head of marketing, Dakota Campbell. We're diving into one of the most interesting areas in crypto right now on the front of collectibles, culture, and ownership online. Dakota, welcome on.
Hey, Jacquelyn, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
Yeah, it's great to have you too. Before we get into everything on the crypto side of things, I think it's more important maybe to start by zooming out. Collecting things obviously is not new. Humans have done this for decades, if not centuries, definitely centuries, right? Think like art, trading cards, sports memorabilia in like the modern world today, all the way back to like people collecting rocks like forever ago, right? And then even
I
in the
enjoy
crypto world, what do you got
a
there?
nice rock myself. Here's some opal.
Oh my gosh, there we go. See, you're collecting. I mean, I collect stuff too. I was just joking before we got on about how I have a sparkling water addiction. So I'm collecting that. But I think maybe for the crypto audience, they understand like NFT side of things, right? And that's probably what they think of when they think of collectibles. So from your perspective, how do you think about them today? And then obviously I've got a ton of questions for you, but like what is kind of driving interest in digital collectibles today?
So I think what's driving interest in digital collectibles is actually a renewed interest in physical collectibles. We've had kind of I don't know if regression is the right word to put it, but when the pandemic hit in 2020 and 2021, we noticed a lot of people kind of going back to their nostalgic roots and kind of nurturing that inner child, particularly my generation and millennials and Gen X and even Gen Z here are, you know, had a newfound interest in the things that made them happy as children, be that sports memorabilia or Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh or any of that. I know I had a lot of free time on my hands, and I myself got back into Pokemon after maybe a 10-year hiatus. Um, you know, we've got the gotcha mechanic, or like
Mhm.
this kind of gamified shopping experience has really started to proliferate into like retail sectors as well. I think uh, particularly within like the blind box and reveal, I think it's really in Web 2, it's kind of a female dominated market right now. Over 60% of blind box mechanics, be it for purses or beauty
Or
items
Labubu's, right?
or the Labubu's
Yeah.
or the um, I was just over at a friend's house and her windowsill was lined with these little cherub babies, moon babies, moon angels,
Yeah.
something. I'm not entirely
Some
sure,
variation
but
of it. Yeah.
the like Japanese Korean kawaii aesthetics are
Yeah.
very prolific within female consumers. Particularly, there's a gotcha machine here in my town that just does. I think it's owned by Funko Pop, but they do all these limited releases, and there's lines down the block just like there are for a new Pokemon release here. So we've really seen TCG manufacturers kind of stepping up their game with the kind of art that's being released on these cards. The rarity and the scarcity of these items is very intentionally fine tuned as well.
Hmm.
But I'm definitely seeing the resurgence in physicals, and I think that's leading to an additional interest in the benefits of collecting these things on chain.
Yeah. Do you think the younger generations view ownership differently than previous ones? And I would imagine the younger ones are way more open to obviously having the physical collectibles, but then also the digital aspect of it too, because they grew up on this technology.
Right, right. My nephew here in Chile is all amped up for the World Cup, right? And they've got these magazines where you can scroll and look at the players and collect these stickers, but every single page on this World Cup FIFA book has like a scannable counterpart too. So you can go into the app, you can collect your Messis and Ronaldos and stuff right there on the app as well. He's got this big iPad he's happy to show you. He's got this magazine where he's ripped all the stickers out of it, and it's really like this duality right now. And I think he just turned 12, so his online collecting ownership and fluency was way greater than mine at age 12. So I think the idea of like this dual ownership is just like a no brainer for the younger folks.
Hmm. Yeah. I mean, one thing that feels kind of different right now maybe is that like collectibles are increasingly becoming more digital native to that point. And like you get something maybe in a magazine, there's a QR code, and then it brings you into some immersive experience online. And the demand is definitely there. I heard about Collector Crypt through crypto Twitter. I saw it all over there. And I know before we got on this, I was asking you for some stats. And for our audience that's not familiar with Collector Crypt, it has generated about 85 million in revenue and about 165 million in volume in April alone, with May tracking a bit higher on those stats, right? So those are definitely not numbers to scoff at in any means. They're very, very big. What do you think is driving that demand, and how do you like think about success when it comes to, okay, here we are near like 100 million in rev, right, in a month alone, and like where do we go from here?
Where do we go from here? Indeed, I think
Hopefully only higher, but yeah,
that's the plan.
right.
The Pokemon market is really what we have to thank for, I think, our immediate success right now. We're seeing about 87% of our revenue is being driven specifically from our Pokemon Gacha style machines. We see about 10% of our revenue coming from One Piece, which is a new emerging market. And sports is something that we've got a lot of room for improvement this year, right? We're seeing about 3% of our revenue being driven by sports. But if you look at the larger collectible space as a whole, sports dominates that sector. So, is it the crypto friendly audience is much more inclined to collect Pokemon cards? Probably. Do we have a lot of work to do to get Collector Crypt in front of more retail users and who appreciate the sports collectibles via Pokemon, or excuse me, via trading cards
Hmm.
or signed baseball bats or autographed jerseys? There is just, to your point earlier, you can collect so many things, and in the sports category of collectibles, particularly, it's incredibly robust. So I'd love to grow that pie this year in terms of our sports presence on Collector Crypt, and I think really what we owe our success to, we were knocking on doors for 5 years. This idea of a gotcha system and tokenizing Pokemon cards and trading cards in general, was really ideated in 2017 when Crypto Kitties and Crypto Punks were first coming out. It was incredibly cost prohibitive at the time to tokenize a $5 card and spend $220 on ETH to do so. It didn't make a lot of sense, but the ideation of digital ownership, or a digital deed, if you will, representing ownership of a physical asset is not really new. We're probably 10 years in the making here with this thing. And only about 5 years ago, when Solana rolled around and we saw these high throughput, fast transactions for very low fees, did it start making sense to put TCGs on the blockchain and allow for the system that we see today? We are very crypto native dominated on our marketplace, right? So the majority of our users came to Collector Crypt because they're familiar with Solana, they're familiar with the tech, and they have a passion for collecting.
Hmm.
About 30% of our users currently will redeem a card at some point in their life, so they'll take it off chain and bring the physical home with them. I'm an avid redeemer myself, but I tend to keep all of my expensive cards on chain.
Hmm.
I don't want them in my house. I've got pit bulls, I've got dogs that would love to chew on very expensive pieces
Yeah.
of cardboard. Um,
And so they're
and
kept
and
in
we
what, like a warehouse or a vault somewhere?
Correct. Yeah,
Hmm.
so when we first launched, we had two partner vaults. We used PSA's vault, which, if you're familiar with the grading company, you're familiar with PSA,
Hmm.
and then PWCC, which is Fanatics and Fanatic Collectibles. They're a very large sports apparel collectibles industry, and they have a vaulting facility as well. Just last year, we purchased our own vaulting facility in Montana. It's a 25,000 square foot facility, and it enables us to really shorten the pipeline from inventory on chain, getting it directly to our user, facilitating the tokenization of all of these assets. It's a much more streamlined process. So it made sense to us to kind of bring that vaulting technology into our gotcha vehicle as well.
Yeah. You brought up Solana before, and I mean, it has been pretty well known for consumer facing applications, culture driven communities on the front of meme coins. And then there's also the capital markets angle. and adoption that they're seeing on chain. When it comes to like maybe shopping around communities or ecosystems to build on top of, what was it that stood out there? And did it kind of naturally fit what you guys were trying to build, or did it over time fit the build? You know what I mean? Like there's two ways to think
Right.
about that. Yeah.
You know, we knocked on a lot of doors, and a lot of people didn't open those doors back in the day. I just made it was kind of a tongue-in-cheek comment last night on crypto Twitter, but I joked that it took 5 years for us to become an overnight success. It was a lot of door knocking. It was a lot of uh, Telegram group chats that never got responded to. You know, we tried a number of L2s at the time. Back in 2021, these side chains, these L2s were all the rave. All the narrative
Yeah.
was surrounding. You know, it's like ETH, but it's faster and cheaper and all of this. And a lot of those discussions turned into like, what can you do for us, and not like, you know, how can our chain facilitate what, you know, what can our chain do for you? Kind of weren't the conversations
Yeah.
we were having in the beginning.
Mhm.
But the culture brought us to Solana, and the enthusiasm from the leadership team to work with an idea like this in such a large capacity just made it clear like this is the place we want to land. The Solana NFT culture is second to none. They are already kind of primed to participate in consumer apps, whereas Ethereum and some L2s are a little bit more institutional facing, not really meant for
Mhm.
40,000 people to rip 10 gotcha packs a day, where Solana fits that use case for us quite well.
Yeah. I also want to clarify if people are confused what gotcha is. It's the it's GACHA, right? Gotcha, like that.
Yes.
And I'm pretty sure it's those like machines where you could like in real life like twist it and out comes like a little ball with a toy inside of it, right?
Yeah, and I think gotcha is even short for like gachapon or
Oh,
something
I
like
don't know.
that. So the gachapon is this machine, and it's, you know, you'll see a Naruto gachapon in Japan, and it's
Yeah.
like, okay, well, here's $3. Let me interact with this Naruto thing. I might pull out, you know, a side character of
Mhm.
little importance, or I might pull out Naruto, and hey, I got the rare one,
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Yeah, they
And
have them all
it's
over Japan, like stores literally that are just gotcha machines. Um, but yeah, I don't want people
the
thinking we're saying like got you, you know.
oh, like
Yeah,
GOTCHA.
like
Yes,
gotcha.
yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
That's a great distinguishing
Yeah. Yeah.
uh, point for our audience who may not be familiar here.
You also brought up before the users of this. A lot of them are very crypto native. So, how do you think about the user experience when you're targeting maybe mainstream collectors versus like crypto native ones? Because I would imagine, a lot of people in crypto have a very strong, trading mindset. They're into DeFi. They understand obviously the Solana ecosystem and other chains, right? Whereas a mainstream person might just literally want a Pokemon card.
Right, and I would even categorize myself as a mainstream user for this. I've got a deep understanding of blockchain technology. I have a surface level understanding of what Pokemon card's going to go up in price next week. But our biggest users are a perfect blend of those two expertise, right? They've been in the crypto ecosystem for several cycles now. They know how to arbitrage. They know how to scan our marketplace and find a good deal and flip it. They're willing to put up front capital into some of those uh, buy and trade situations that are very short term holds. But they also have a very robust understanding of um, the Pokemon TCG cycle.
Hmm.
We have kind of been here before, right? 2020 and 2021 again. When COVID hit, Pokemon had a bit of a meteoric rise back then as well. And so I would say our largest users are folks who kind of survived that bear and bull market of Pokemon and have survived a couple of cycles on chain as well. And they're able to use their knowledge from both of these categories to collect the cards that they've really been hunting that are impossible to get elsewhere. And then, there's a large number of people on our platform that are, buying and selling strictly for
Hmm.
not a collectible experience, but to turn a profit.
Right. Right. What is the
And
trading
so
volume like for that?
our marketplace trading volume is continually expanding, but it definitely pales in comparison to the volume we're seeing on our gotcha machines in general. So, if you take April, for example, we probably broke a million in volume on the marketplace. We had 164 additional million in volume on the gotcha side of things. So
Yeah.
um, it's something that we're building up. I think to add additional liquidity to these collectible assets has always been a difficult thing, right? Traditionally you had to go through eBay or you had to go to a card show to get a card that you wanted. And 10 sales in a week could really, really drive up the price of a card that you might be, you know, you could wake up and this card's $150 by the time you get to your Collecticon event and get to your hotel. And the next day it's a 20% increase or something. So price discovery is a lot slower. And when we bring these assets on chain, we're able to expedite that price discovery process, um, give additional liquidity where it needs to be given. I think we can really, start to pour some gasoline on this fire that is our marketplace,
Hmm.
and hopefully drive additional volume to that in the future. But for now, it's kind of the foundation that we've laid with our own marketplace that we've been building out. We kind of were aggregating Magic Eden's marketplace data for the longest time, and we kind of just took that in house recently and added all the bells and whistles that we as collectors ourselves have been wanting to see.
Yeah. Do you find that having this hybrid of like IRL and digital collectibles on a marketplace, to your point about the price discoverability, has actually made it more accurate and transparent than like if I were to just buy a pack of cards on eBay or something, or go to like a Comic-Con and buy something from someone's booth? Because you're actually seeing like the historical data, right?
Without a doubt, we are expediting that process, and I think there's a handful of cards that have set all-time highs that have been digital purchases of Collector Crypt, like the eBay and Collector app or price charting, or a lot of these consumer-facing tools that help people aggregate purchase data. They're not even seeing these things, but when I first started working here just a few months ago, we had sold a Mario Pikachu PSA 10 on the Magic Eden marketplace at the time, $32,000. I think this thing sold for. It hit a record. It broke the record for that card and that price at that time. And we're going to start seeing a lot more of these big purchases take place on chain. Particularly because the way you go about purchasing something sizable now through eBay is very profit prohibitive to the seller, and it's very uh, potentially dangerous for the buyer. If I'm in South Korea and I engage in a purchase from someone here in Texas, the seller's going to get hit with a 14% fee on eBay if that's where we bought it from. And then me as the buyer here in South Korea, I've got to pay the import taxes. If there's a tariff associated with the $32,000 item I just reported, it's got to make it here. It's got to survive transit. It's got to, arrive in the condition that the seller promised me it would. And so when you bring all these things on chain, you're trading the digital deed. Again, to my point I brought up previously, I don't want a $32,000 card in my home. I want to own it. It may be in some circumstances, but let it stay in a climate controlled vault, and I can trade the ownership on it. I could go take out a loan against it now. Jupiter and Loopscale and some of our partners in the DeFi space have found ways to bring additional liquidity to these assets. And I think 2026 is the year we really start viewing our collectibles as assets, and the rails in place for traditional means of purchasing these assets is extractive. There's a lot of middleman. Again, I mentioned eBay. If you're buying just in person, a buyer at a card shop on a good day might give you 80% of that card's value. Whereas a Collector Crypt, you're getting 85 to upwards of 93% on that card's value instantly. Every time you engage with our gachapon, your card's secured, it's vaulted. You don't have to worry about these physical issues that arise. And you're not paying a middleman on our marketplace. I think our marketplace fee is 2%. It's the best in the industry out there for on-chain collectibles at this time. And it definitely knocks eBay out of the water in terms of fees that we collect from sellers.
Yeah. How do you attract people who are not familiar with Collector Crypt or are not within the crypto space? Like if someone is, a collector themselves and they want to sell, how do you guys go about that? Like if they are using more traditional routes?
I like to say, well, I don't like to say, someone very famous said this before me and I just can't remember his name, but you got to sell the sizzle and not the steak sometimes, right? And I'm
I
not
like
coming
that.
to Instagram and telling people like, buy this thing on Solana and it's high throughput and 10,000 transactions a second.
That's not what
Like
they want to hear.
they don't care. They don't care. Like,
I
I
agree.
don't know how Visa works,
Yeah,
but I know when I go to the coffee shop and I
it
tap my piece of
works.
plastic on
Yeah.
the kiosk, I get my cold brew. That's the extent of the understanding of the technology here. Like,
Yeah.
I'm a big proponent of technology should be experienced and not explained. And the last thing I want to do when someone gets to my platform, if my SEO and my ad got me in front of the right person, my ad got that person to click on my link,
Yeah.
come to my website, find a card that they want, and now they're like, "What the hell is Solana? Like, I'm not buying this. I don't know
Mm,
what I'm doing here." Like, I've failed as a marketer if the purchase point is the biggest pain point, right? If we've done all this work to market to the right person, wrangle them into our site, and then the purchasing option fails, it's like, we've just lost a customer essentially.
mhm.
And so you don't sell the technology, you don't sell the steak, you sell the sizzle, you sell the ability to trade instantly, you sell the lowest fees in the industry for doing these trades, you sell the biggest breadth of inventory you could ever imagine, you sell the opportunity to get the same experience that you would at a collecticon from the comfort of your home, from your desktop PC or your couch.
Mhm.
I don't have to go to Cleveland and drive 2 hours and pay $80 to attend a convention to buy 5 cards. I can do that all from the comfort of my home because the marketplace is very robust on Collector Crypt, and our gotcha machines are loaded with some of the most sought after cards you could ever imagine. They
Mhm.
might not even be at a collecticon. They're so rare.
So when you reach out or market to non-crypto people, like, is the Solana aspect and the fact that it's on chain like not necessarily like the forefront of it all? Like if someone were to go to Collector Crypt site today, it would just feel like a normal marketplace to buy and sell digital collectibles and physical?
It would not.
No.
And we are in a very large UX UI overhaul on our site.
Yeah.
We've got an app in the works as well that we're
I'm
that we're
pretending like
looking
I
to
didn't look
release
at
this
your
summer.
site. For people wondering, yes.
So when you come to our site,
Yeah.
currently it is very collector oriented. It is very someone who is privy to blockchain, and that's all well and good right now because those are our two largest customers. They're serious collectors and they're native blockchain users. But as we look to expand, as we must expand, because we believe that this truly is the future of how you're going to collect highly sought after collectibles and trade them and transact with them in the future. We've got to make that a lot more user friendly. And so you've seen in April we had a bit of a branding redesign. We've kind of gone back to this nostalgic route of like an 80s 90s blockbuster feel or
Right.
an old school comic shop. And our website is going to have a lot of that nostalgic tone as well as yes, we love Solana, yes, it's beautiful, crypto is great, but all of that great technology is going to work in the background without us ever having to explain it to the end user. So
Mhm.
you can sign up right now with Google or Apple Pay on our site. It's going to ask you for a wallet first, or that wallet option will be there right away. But as we get more robust credit card processing partners, and look to bolster our website for what an average consumer is used to seeing, going to like a StockX or
Mhm.
an eBay or whatnot, or any of these other e-commerce sites that deal with collectibles, Collector Crypt is going to look and feel like that a lot more in the future as well.
Mhm. Do you think more teams should have this marketing approach?
You've got to meet your customer where they are. And for us, for the longest time, we were very much let the product speak for itself. And uh, the team saw tremendous success letting it do that because it's the best damn product out there, in my opinion.
Yeah.
However, as you look to grow, I can't speak the same language that I speak to crypto Twitter, to your regular Instagram user. I can't even say the same things to an Instagram user that I can say to a TikTok user. Or, if I'm putting out a live stream that goes on YouTube, that's an entirely different audience with an entirely different buzzwords and interests and all of that. And so,
Yeah.
you know, your company does need to be a bit of a shapeshifter depending on the audience that you want to outreach to. And I would welcome a number of consumer facing crypto apps to start doing that. Like be proud of your roots, be proud of where you came from. Don't destroy your brand chasing TikTok by any stretch of the imagination. But one man's generic is another man's digestible in some cases, and I've noticed myself really having to like take a step back and say like, Dakota, you just made this app or application announcement, and it's way too high level for the audience that you're going back
Mhm.
from. So like, strip it out a little bit. It's okay to start from step one, even though you're incredibly familiar with the product. Not all these people are. Like, I'm glad that you asked for a clarification on what gotcha means before this stream started. Like,
Well, it's because like some of these things like I know the answer to, or we can't assume that people do, right?
yes,
And yeah, 100% or 100% to what you're saying. And then even on the marketing front, like I know for us over at my company, like we exist within the crypto space. We know all these terms, we live and breathe it. But then it's like if we're trying to appeal to an audience that's not always in this space, you have to assume they don't know what you're talking about and take a step back, right? So
and you're going to find that their core interests are what you're trying to talk about. But if you go too high at first, you're going to miss.
yeah, too technical, too in the weeds, too whatever. You got to dial it
Yeah,
back. Yeah,
yeah. Sell the
100%.
sizzle.
Yeah. You said the difference between Instagram and TikTok too. How do you differentiate those audiences? Because I would have assumed they're more similar.
So short form content is king on both platforms, but whereas I might put a 30-second ad or I might put ad spin behind a 30-second video from a live stream on Instagram, like very rarely can you do that on TikTok. You need a 8-second ad. You need incredibly strong hook. You need immediate call to action,
Hmm.
immediate result, or it's much harder to stop the scroll on TikTok than it is Instagram, I'll say. And you know, maybe that's operator error. I'm 31 years old. I don't speak TikTok too
Oh
well,
yeah.
but I'm a big proponent of knowing what I'm good at and not and knowing what I'm also not good at. So we've brought on assistants to help us in the TikTok realm as well to help build out that brand and scale our platform there. And I've found at least with Instagram that it took some dialing in, but we're really hitting our TCG audience now. We're hitting, folks that like to watch pack rip reveals. We're hitting folks that like to watch man on the street videos or talking heads from a convention. Or, we run a live stream twice a week. That's a lot of pack ripping and market activations, market discussion and forecasting. And I'm able to take a 60-minute live stream and break that down into 10, 30-second clips. It's being very well received on Instagram at this time. We've got some work to do for TikTok, and don't be afraid of what the numbers are telling you. uh, Even if you've only had 4 ad campaigns go out on TikTok, like really look at that and evaluate what that success is, and pivot before it's too late. What's the saying, that a stitch in time saves 9, something like that.
I don't know that
It's
one. Yeah, but I get it, right?
sorry, I'm from I've got all these Appalachian sayings I whip out for now from time to time, but
Yeah. No, I think this is all very valuable. And I think we went on a tangent a bit here on marketing, but I'm happy to talk about it because I think a lot of people in the space struggle with marketing properly, and then also across different platforms and like knowing their audiences. And you guys exist in an interesting place where like you are providing a very mainstream or quote unquote normal service, but it's built on blockchain rails, right? And there is like
Mhm.
that crypto component to it. And so then it's like, how do you kind of bring this to a market without like overwhelming them or scaring them off? Because a lot of people have this negative connotation still towards crypto, right?
Precisely. And it's it you almost need two types of creators as well. And as much as I love my Web3 content
Of
creating
course.
homies,
Yeah.
like I've been there. I've like
Yeah. I mean, listen, I get it. Yeah.
their help is immense. Like it's immense. It's got us to where we are now. However, um I had mentioned previously, you can't speak the same way you speak on crypto Twitter to a native audience. And it's at the same time, you can't put all of your money into just every ad spend opportunity out there, particularly as a team as small as us. Like we're a one-man marketing department. It's
Mhm.
high.
You are the
marketing at
boss,
Collector
you are
Crypt.
the employee, you are the whole
Yes,
circle.
the
Yeah.
operator, the executor, and we bring on help. I've got live stream help. We've got some content creators that help us as well, and folks that help us post on socials. And it's definitely uh, eco driven.
Hmm.
Your Web3 KOL is not going to talk to your Instagram audience
Hmm.
as effectively as someone who's already doing pack rip openings on Instagram or going to these shows. It's like
Yeah.
you want a subject matter expert to create your content depending on your audience, and crypto KOLs are perfect at talking to folks that are interested in crypto. Um, but I'm very much a supporter of finding other artists and creators within their niche of collectibles and TCGs to kind of talk the talk to a more consumer friendly audience here as well.
Yeah. So when it comes to your ad campaigns, you were talking about the pivot before. How long do you let them run if they're not performing well before you're like, all right, let's kill this and move on?
Right now,
They can't all
like
be
we're dialed,
winners.
they can't all be winners.
Yeah.
And we have really, and so again, we're going to talk platform specific for a moment because X is all about amplification. I'm not incredibly worried on driving sales to Collector Crypt from X. I think we've got a number of different ways to do that outside of ad spend. X is amplification of product updates and messagings and restocks and that sort of stuff. And we're getting, a 10 cent to $1 CPM. When I put $1 in there, I know I'm at least going to get 1,000 views
Hmm.
or maybe 10,000 views if it's a really, really refined ad. On Instagram, that CPM is a lot higher, but you're dialed into that audience you want to talk to, right? I just had my buddy called me last night while I was at lunch, and was like, I just saw a Collector Crypt ad on Facebook.
Yeah. You're like, good.
I'm like, yeah, hell yeah, because you're a collector, you're 32 years
Yeah.
old, and
Yeah.
you
You
like
are the
Pokemon.
target
So
audience. Yes.
so damn right you saw my ad.
Yeah.
But to get them in front of, to put your ad in front of a more niche audience that's susceptible to your product and brand amplification is $1.80 to $3. Maybe you're paying 10 cents a click to drive someone to your website. Beautiful. If I can stay in that range, $2 to $4 CPM for like a dialed in audience, lovely. I just killed an ad yesterday that was like a $13 CPM instantly. No, I'm not even letting that thing cook. Like it's like stop. Go
Why?
on to
What
the
was
next
wrong
one.
with it?
It was talking about my hatred of dessert Pokemon. So there's like milk Pokemon and cinnamon bun Pokemon and
Oh.
ice cream Pokemon. I thought I had a hot take
Yeah. Yeah.
that would do well. Everyone's like, leave dessert Pokemon alone. Why are you
Oh.
throwing shade on
They
dessert
liked it.
Pokemon?
Okay. Well, they didn't like it, but they
Um,
liked dessert Pokemon.
yeah,
Yeah.
I thought it would spark up a conversation,
Yeah.
be sent to some people. It didn't. That's okay. No, I didn't have a pity party that my ad didn't do well. I just stopped spending money on that ad.
Yeah.
On to the next one.
Yeah.
Back to the drawing board.
Yeah. That's totally valid. Wow. Okay. That's super helpful. And I hope it is to the listeners too, because I think a lot of teams like have told me that they struggle kind of with, the marketing side, narrative, et cetera, and like what to run and what not to run, especially like know your audience, like instead of KYCing, like know your customer or consumer, you want to know your audience for sure and make sure it makes
Bingo.
sense. Yeah. Maybe going back to the digital collectible front to kind of wrap things up on this side, what categories do you think are most likely to move on chain next? Is it something like we talked about sports before, luxury goods, ticketing, gaming assets? Is there other categories that you guys are interested in beyond like the ones that we've discussed that don't really exist within it today? Or do you guys have like that big breadth already?
I would say right before Solana Accelerate, we partnered with comicbook.com, and that was the first proof of concept outside of TCGs. That you can do the same thing that we've been doing here for TCGs with comic books. Comic books are traditionally they're hard to find, they're hard to buy. Graded ones in particular, you walk into your board game shop, comic book shop, whatever.
Right.
You go past the figurines. TCGs have this nice display case. Comic books are in these dusty, stinky boxes in the back. They're hard to look through.
Right.
Having them all live in one place is bad for the condition of the comic book. And so, comic books kind of proved this concept that yes, you can gamify a shopping experience for a number of different collectibles categories, and I'd even like to do that with signed memorabilia, particularly in the sports realm, baseball bats, even figurines that like a lot of folks want figurines up on their display case. A lot of people buy Legos and don't ever open the box. They just see the sealed box of Legos as a collectible asset.
Right.
I've got a mountain of unopened Pokemon ETBs and sealed product. There's some sealed product on my desk. Like, I don't necessarily need to keep this in my home to speculate on its price or to collect it for the reasons that I'm collecting it. And a climate controlled environment in Montana that's insured and humidity regulated, temperature regulated, all of that sounds a lot more appealing to keep my more expensive collectibles in than putting a jersey up on my wall and letting the sun hit it or the humidity of Pittsburgh destroy it over time.
Yeah.
Physical collectibles have a long way to go. And in particular, with the sinking cost of tokenizing something in general, Metaplex just released a compressed NFT standard that makes it a lot more affordable to tokenize. Do I have any like, your Grail cards that you pull out of a pack that might be $10 and up always made sense for us, but this card is worth 12 cents. I just like it. He's got nice long hair like I do. But you could tokenize an entire pack ripping experience. So open a pack, all of those 12-cent cards, get instantly tokenized as someone's like live streaming the pack ripping event. You could tokenize positions in line to purchase a concert ticket. Like, if it exists in the real world, you can bring it on chain and with the right rails, make a way better experience for everyone because it's transparent, it's trustless, it's instant. There's not a Ticketmaster middleman scraping 20% off the top. There's not an eBay middleman scraping 14% off the top. I think we are like 5% loading into seeing like the fruition of our thesis come to fruition here with what you can do with tokenized collectibles.
What's the timeline for that?
Years.
Yeah,
like years and years. I think this year expanding into a couple of different TCG IP categories, like perhaps Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Dragon Ball Z, definitely on the radar. I want to grow the pie for sports. I think sports memorabilia helps grow that pie. But I think as token standards evolve, as it gets cheaper and faster to do these things, we are, there's a 5-year roadmap that we can continually innovate on, without a doubt.
Yeah. All right, Dakota, before we wrap, I want to do a little quick rapid fire with you. You down?
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Most underrated collectible category right now?
Yu-Gi-Oh!
Why Yu-Gi-Oh?
I think it had its heyday, and then they just overprinted it into oblivion. And I think they're starting to see like what traction Pokemon has had. It's a way more easily playable game as well. You don't need tokens and dice and all of that. You can play it on the bus or with your friend. I think I'd love to see a resurgence of Yu-Gi-Oh cards come back into the limelight here.
All right, Yu-Gi-Oh fans, make it happen. Physical or digital collectibles, which one would you pick if you could only pick one?
If I could only pick one, physical.
Okay. Most bullish trend in on-chain consumer apps that you're tracking?
The session spend. Because of the gacha mechanics where they have a positive EV to them. If I ripped 100 packs from the $50 gacha machine and I sold nothing back, I'm just collecting to collect. On average, I'd have a 5%, positive expected value as I went on. And what that allows our users to do is engage with our site, rip a couple of packs, keep the ones that they love, sell back the ones that they don't, and now they've got some valuable cards on hand, and they've sold back the duds, if you will. But because we've got a non-extractive mechanism about this, we're not rinsing a customer 50% every time they pull a pack. They stay on our site. When I first got here at Collector Crypt about 3 months ago, our daily session spend was like 7K. It's like 18K right now. That doesn't mean that someone has set $18,000 on fire to interact with my machine, but it means that they've bought and sold $100 pack back and forth, 20, 30 times. They found the cards that they loved. They've sold the ones that they don't, and that's their session for the day. So seeing session trends increasing upwards means that we're not extracting our community. The community members are returning session after session to continue this, and it's exactly where we want to be. It's the sweet spot between a company that has to exist to make profit and a company that has to value and honor our collectors before we do anything else.
Yeah. Should people keep their duds?
The market is doing what the market does. This was a dud when I first got it. It's a PSA 9 Celebration Pikachu. This was $45 6 months ago when I claimed it. It's probably $80 now.
Doubled in value almost, yeah.
Not financial advice. Collect what you love, but I like little guys.
Yeah.
So let me find
the underdogs.
Yeah, just like the tiny Pokemon or the cute ones, or like collect what you love. Who gives a shit what it's worth? Like,
exactly. Okay, what's the weirdest thing you've seen someone collect?
The weirdest thing I've seen someone collect. Well, Grandma liked thimbles.
Okay.
There was a wall of thimbles in Grandma's house.
That's very Appalachian of you.
It's Grandpa collected mounted deer heads, and Grandma collected thimbles. I'd say my rock collection's kind of weird.
Okay.
There's these little cherub babies I keep seeing. If someone knows what the name of them are, please tell me. But they're like these little naked angels with like goofy hats and stuff. It reminds me of a Labubu a lot.
Yes. A variation.
Some of my wife's friends like go nuts for these things. So it's one that I don't understand, but I can appreciate.
Yeah.
Like they were pulling them out last week and they're like, oh, this one's really rare. Like his hand's doing this thing. And like all the other hands are down. And I'm like, I cannot make fun of this because I do the exact same thing with cardboard.
Yeah, you're like, I like the little Pokemon.
This is awesome.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. And then what would be one word you would use to describe where collectibles are heading?
Meteoric, stratospheric. Yeah, it's.
You could use a few words.
Tip of the iceberg.
Yeah.
The on-chain economy for collectibles, I think, is maybe 15 billion this year, or maybe it was that in 2025. It's expected to double in the next year or two. I don't think it shows any signs for slowing down with the amount of assets that you can collect, be it rocks or thimbles or signed memorabilia or TCGs. I think the sky's the limit. They're only making more collectibles, and it seems that we're putting a little bit higher value on things that made us happier as children, and like our nostalgic roots here. Yeah. I don't see that slowing down anytime soon.
Yeah. All right. Last thing, can you leave us with a piece of advice, something that you've carried with you throughout your time in this space?
I mean, like a piece of personal development advice is just keep knocking. Like, I started in crypto. Well, I mean, I bought my first Bitcoin in 2013. Participated in the ICO days in 2017. Never made millions of dollars ever. It's just a sector that had always interested me. And 2021 Web3 got me into this idea of the metaverse. Got me into Web3. I had a 9 to 5 and a 5 to 9 for a number of years before I was able to work my passion full time. And it's like, just keep knocking. It's amazing what you can let your passion and expertise and your hobby turn into if you give yourself as many opportunities to succeed as possible. I'm speaking to you as the head of marketing for a $1 billion in revenue company. My voice just cracked even saying that. It's wild.
It's exciting. Yes.
But the necessity breeds ingenuity. And I think there's just so many opportunities to really excel within Web3. And you just have to put yourself out there.
Yeah, I love it. Amazing. Well, Dakota, thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me, Jacquelyn. It was a pleasure to chat.
For sure.